My name is Jerry Adams, 58 years old, and I just experienced the most ironic twist of fate on Father's Day. Life has a funny way of teaching lessons when you least expect it. One day you're opening a $2 lottery ticket while watching your daughter beam with pride, giving her father-in-law an expensive cruise. The next day everything changes. Sometimes the smallest gifts deliver the biggest lessons. Before I begin this unbelievable story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe in the power of karma. I have only one child, my daughter Amanda. We've always been close, especially after my wife Sarah passed away from breast cancer when Amanda was just 15. The loss devastated us both, but somehow we managed to pick up the pieces and move forward together. I became both mother and father to her, doing my best to fill the enormous void Sarah left behind. For 35 years, I worked as a mechanical engineer at the same manufacturing company. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills and provided stability. I never missed a day, never took vacations, and picked up every overtime opportunity possible. Why? Because I was determined to give Amanda the future she deserved, especially a college education without the burden of student loans. Our life was simple but dignified. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house in a middle-class neighborhood. I drove the same Toyota Camry for 15 years, patching it up whenever something broke rather than replacing it. Fancy restaurants were for special occasions only. International vacations. Those remained distant dreams. Every extra dollar went into Amanda's college fund or our emergency savings. Despite our limited means, I made sure Amanda never felt deprived. We had our traditions: Sunday morning pancakes, summer camping trips to local state parks, and holiday movie marathons. I attended every school play, every soccer game, every award ceremony. What we lacked in material wealth, we made up for in time spent together. Amanda blossomed into a bright, ambitious young woman. She graduated with honors from State University, with a business degree, the first person in our family to earn a college diploma. I remember sitting in the audience at her graduation, tears streaming down my face, knowing Sarah would have been so proud. Everything changed when Amanda met James Thompson during her first job at a marketing firm. James came from an entirely different world. His father, Richard Thompson, owned a successful real estate development company that had properties across 3 states. The Thompson family lived in a gated community in a house with more bathrooms than my entire home had rooms. They drove luxury vehicles, took exotic vacations twice a year, and had a lifestyle I could scarcely comprehend. The first time I met Richard Thompson was at an awkward dinner where he spent most of the evening talking about his recent purchase of a vacation property in the Bahamas. He asked what properties I owned and seemed genuinely confused when I explained I had just the one house with a mortgage nearly paid off. "No vacation home, no investment properties?" he asked incredulously. "You should talk to me about getting into the market. Never too late to start building real wealth." These encounters became routine. Richard would showcase his latest acquisition, a yacht, a limited edition, watch a new Mercedes, and then offer unsolicited financial advice as if my simple lifestyle was a problem to be fixed rather than a choice. His wife Elaine was more subtle, but equally condescending, asking Amanda questions about my dating life in tones that suggested she found it tragic that I remained single all these years. What bothered me most wasn't their wealth. People can live however they want, but how their attitude began affecting Amanda. She started making comments about our house being cozy, with a tone that really meant small. She questioned why I still drove my old car, when I could easily afford something newer. She began declining our traditional camping trips, preferring instead to vacation with James and his family at their beach house. The wedding was a turning point. Richard insisted on paying for everything, brushing aside my attempts to contribute. "This is what we do for family," he said, in a way that made it clear he didn't consider me capable of providing adequately. The ceremony was extravagant. 500 guests, many of whom I'd never met, at an exclusive country club. I felt out of place in my rented tuxedo, relegated to a secondary role despite being the father of the bride. During the reception, I overheard Richard telling guests he was glad Amanda found a place in a proper family now. The comment stung, but I swallowed my pride. This day wasn't about me. It was about Amanda's happiness. She seemed to glow with joy as she danced with James and later with Richard, who twirled her around the floor with practiced ease. When it came time for the father-daughter dance with me, the song was half the length of the one she'd danced to with Richard. After the wedding, Amanda and James moved into a luxury condo, purchased by Richard as their wedding gift. Our weekly dinners became monthly, then sporadic. Each time we met, Amanda had new stories about Thompson family events, charity galas, wine-tasting parties, weekend trips to New York for Broadway shows. I listened and smiled, trying to show genuine interest, while fighting the growing feeling that I was losing my daughter to a world I could never be part of. As Father's Day approached, the first since Amanda's wedding 6 months earlier, I wondered what it would bring. Amanda called to invite me to a celebration at Richard and Elaine's mansion. "We're having a special dinner for both our dads," she explained. "It'll be nice, I promise." I accepted, of course. Any opportunity to spend time with my daughter was precious, even if it meant enduring Richard's subtle put-downs for an evening. Little did I know that this particular Father's Day would change everything. The Thompson mansion was even more impressive than I remembered. Situated on 3 acres of perfectly manicured grounds, the colonial-style home boasted imposing columns, a circular driveway with a fountain at its center, and enough square footage to house 5 families comfortably. I parked my aging Camry between Richard's Bentley and Elaine's Range Rover. The contrast between our vehicles, a perfect metaphor for the gulf between our lives. I straightened my tie, my one good tie purchased years ago for job interviews, and grabbed the bottle of whiskey I'd brought as a hostess gift. It wasn't expensive, but it was a respectable brand that wouldn't embarrass Amanda. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door. Elaine greeted me with an air kiss and a practiced smile. "Jerry, how lovely to see you. Please come in. Everyone's on the back terrace." The inside of the house was a showcase of wealth. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked museum-worthy. Family photos lined one wall, and I noticed with a pang that there were already several of Amanda and James prominently displayed, while my own presence was limited to one small picture from the wedding. The back terrace overlooked an infinity pool and meticulously landscaped gardens. A long table had been set with fine china and sterling silver flatware. Richard stood at an elaborate outdoor bar, fixing drinks for James and 2 couples I didn't recognize. Friends of the Thompsons, I presumed. "Jerry." The man of the hour. Well, one of them anyway. Richard boomed, raising his glass. "What can I get you to drink Scotch bourbon?" "Bourbon would be fine, thank you," I said, handing him the bottle I'd brought. Richard examined the label with a slight raise of his eyebrows. "Ah, very nice. We'll save this for another time. Today we're drinking the 25-year Macallan. Special occasion deserves special spirits." He poured me a glass of amber liquid that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. Amanda emerged from the house carrying a tray of appetizers. her face lighting up when she saw me. "Dad, you made it." She gave me a quick, one-armed hug, balancing the tray with her other hand. "Happy Father's Day." "Happy Father's Day to you too, Pumpkin," I replied, using my old nickname for her. "These look delicious." "The caterer just dropped them off," she said proudly. "Wait until you taste the main course. We have lobster and filet mignon." Dinner was a parade of extravagant dishes, each more elaborate than the last. The conversation revolved around topics that excluded me. The exclusive golf club Richard had recently joined the charity gala. Elaine was organizing the Thompsons' upcoming anniversary trip to Japan. I contributed when I could, but mostly I watched Amanda. She seamlessly fit into their world, now discussing wine vintages and stock portfolios as if she'd been born into privilege. Richard dominated the conversation as usual. "So the big news is we're finally doing it. Mediterranean cruise next month. 15 days, all the major ports, private balcony suite. Been on my bucket list for years." "That sounds wonderful," one of the women commented. "Which cruise line?" "The Regent Explorer. Top of the line, all-inclusive. Not one of those floating buffets with thousands of tourists. This is limited to just 600 guests, gourmet dining, premium everything." Richard was practically glowing with anticipated pleasure. "Dad's been talking about this cruise forever," James added. "Practically memorized the brochure." As dessert was being served, some kind of deconstructed cheesecake that looked more like art than food, Amanda stood up with a smile. "Since it's Father's Day, James and I have some special gifts." She disappeared into the house, returning with 2 gift bags, one large and wrapped with elaborate silver paper, and ribbons, the other small and simple. "Richard, this is for you," she said, handing him the larger package. "From both of us." Richard tore into the wrapping with childlike enthusiasm. Inside was a thick envelope which he opened with flourish. His eyes widened. "No way. Are you serious?" He pulled out a booklet of papers, flipping through them excitedly. "Tickets for the Mediterranean cruise," Amanda explained to the group. 2 tickets, actually, for you and Mum, all-inclusive just like you wanted with the balcony suite and everything. We know how much you've been wanting to go." Richard jumped up and hugged both Amanda and James. "This is incredible. Elaine, can you believe this? 15 days on the Mediterranean." He examined the tickets more closely. "Wait, these are for the owner's suite. That's over $13,000 per person. This is too generous." "Nothing's too good for you, Dad," James said, beaming with pride. "You deserve it." Richard continued examining the cruise documents, pointing out features to Elaine. "Look, private dining options, priority booking for excursions, butler service." After several minutes of excitement, Amanda turned to me with a smaller gift bag. "And this is for you, Dad." I accepted the bag with a smile, though I felt a twinge of apprehension at the stark difference in size between the 2 gifts. Inside was a simple envelope and a small card that read, "Happy Father's Day to a great dad." Opening the envelope, I found a single lottery ticket. Powerball, a $2 scratch-off ticket. "Thought you might get lucky," Amanda said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You always say you don't need fancy things." I stared at the ticket, trying to mask my hurt. Not because of the monetary value. I had never cared about expensive gifts, but because of what it represented. The thoughtlessness, the afterthought, the clear message about where I ranked in importance. "Thank you, sweetheart," I managed, forcing a smile. "Very thoughtful." An awkward silence fell over the table, broken when Richard laughed. "Hey, who knows? Maybe Jerry will hit the jackpot and finally be able to retire in style. What's the prize this week? 100 million or something." 150 million, James said. Odds are pretty slim, though. About the same as my chances of affording a Mediterranean cruise on my pension, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. The comment drew polite laughter, but I could see the pity in the eyes of the other guests. For the remainder of the evening, the conversation revolved around the cruise. Richard pulled out his laptop to show everyone pictures of the ship, the ports of call, the luxury accommodations. My $2 lottery ticket sat on the table beside my plate, a pathetic contrast to the lavish gift Amanda had given her father-in-law. When it was time to leave, I hugged Amanda goodbye. Thanks again for the gift and for including me today, I said, meaning it despite everything. I still treasured any time with my daughter. Of course, Dad. Maybe your ticket will be lucky. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek before turning back to help Elaine clear the dessert plates. I drove home in silence, the lottery ticket tossed on the passenger seat. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. What hurt was knowing that Amanda had put thought effort and significant resources into Richard's gift, while mine felt like an obligatory afterthought. What hurt was realizing that my years of sacrifice for her had apparently meant less than Richard's display of wealth and status. For the first time, I allowed myself to wonder if I had lost my daughter for good. I arrived home just after 9, the house dark and empty as it had been for years now. After flipping on the lights, I slumped onto my worn leather recliner, the same chair where I'd read bedtime stories to Amanda, where I'd comforted her after her first heartbreak, where I'd sat holding Sarah's hand during her final months. The contrast between the evening I'd just experienced and my simple home was stark. No marble countertops or crystal chandeliers here. Just comfortable, well-used furniture, family photos on the walls, and the quiet dignity of a place that had sheltered generations of my family. The lottery ticket was still in my pocket. I tossed it onto the coffee table and stared at it, a physical representation of my diminished value in Amanda's eyes. $2. That's what our relationship was worth now. I leaned back and closed my eyes, memories washing over me like waves. Amanda's first day of kindergarten, her tiny hand clutching mine. Brave smile masking her fear. The science fair, where her solar system model won first prize, her face radiant with pride. The night Sarah died holding Amanda as we both sobbed until there were no tears left. After Sarah's diagnosis, I had taken on a second job doing CAD work from home to cover the mounting medical bills. Insurance helped, but there were experimental treatments not covered, plus countless incidental expenses. I worked 16-hour days, slept 4 hours a night, existing on coffee and determination. When Sarah passed, I channeled my grief into ensuring Amanda would have everything she needed. I remained at the manufacturing plant, despite being offered a higher-paying position at a company across the country, because moving would have meant uprooting Amanda from the only stability she had left. I turned down promotions that would have required extensive travel, sacrificing career advancement to be present for school events and ordinary weeknight dinners. One memory in particular surfaced tonight. Amanda's junior year of college, when she needed first and last month's rent plus security deposit for an off-campus apartment. Money was tight. The company had cut overtime due to an economic downturn. I had exactly one item of significant value, my grandfather's pocket watch passed down through generations. I sold it to a collector, without hesitation, never telling Amanda where the money came from. Her having a safe, decent place to live was worth more than any heirloom. I got up and walked to my bedroom closet, pulling down a box from the top shelf. Inside were mementos of Amanda's childhood, report cards, drawings, school programs. At the bottom was a photo album I hadn't looked at in years. Flipping through the pages was like traveling back in time. Amanda's birth, her first steps, Sarah and I taking turns holding our daughter, our faces young and full of hope. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, the last family photo before Sarah got sick, the three of us on a camping trip, smiles wide and genuine. The later pages showed a different family, just Amanda and me carrying on. Her high school graduation, college move in day. My expression in these photos was tired but proud. I had kept my promise to Sarah. Our daughter was thriving despite everything. The final pages showed Amanda's wedding. She was breathtaking in her white gown, looking so much like her mother, it made my chest ache. There were photos of her with James, with bridesmaids, with the Thompsons. The few with me seemed stiff formal, as if I were a distant relative, rather than the father who had raised her alone. Tears fell onto the plastic sleeve covering the photos. I wiped them away, embarrassed, even though no one was there to see. It wasn't like me to wallow in self-pity. But tonight, the weight of years of sacrifice measured against a $2 lottery ticket was simply too much to bear. My phone rang, breaking the silence. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. "Hey, Dad. Did you make it home okay?" Her voice sounded cheerful, but with an undercurrent of something else. Guilt, perhaps. "Just got in a little while ago," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Thanks again for today. So what did you think of your gift? Are you going to check the numbers tonight? The drawing should be soon." No apology. No acknowledgement of the disparity between my gift and Richard's. Just casual conversation, as if nothing were amiss. "I might check later," I said. "How's the rest of your evening going?" "Oh, we're still planning the cruise with Richard and Elaine. They're so excited. We're looking at shore excursions now. There's this amazing private tour in Santorini that includes a sunset dinner on a cliff overlooking the ocean." "Sounds wonderful," I managed. "I'm sure they'll have a great time." "I know the cruise tickets were expensive," Amanda said suddenly, her voice dropping. "But Dad Richard is just so hard to shop for. You know, he already has everything. And we knew how much he wanted this specific cruise." I waited, hoping for some recognition of how her gift to me might have appeared in comparison. It didn't come. "And you know you're not really into fancy things," she continued. "You always say experiences matter more than stuff. I thought a lottery ticket would be fun. Practical, too." "Practical." I repeated the word, tasting bitter. "You know what I mean," Amanda said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "You've always been sensible about money. You don't splurge on yourself. That's what I admire about you, Dad. You're not materialistic like some people." The irony of this statement coming after hours of watching her fawn over the Thompsons' wealth was almost too much, but I held my tongue. "Anyway," she continued, oblivious to my silence, "if you do check the ticket, let me know if you win anything. Wouldn't that be something? Talk to you tomorrow, Dad. Love you." She hung up before I could respond, presumably returning to the cruise planning session. I sat there holding the phone, a complex mixture of emotions churning inside me. Anger at being so casually dismissed, hurt at the thoughtlessness, sadness at the growing distance between us, but mostly disappointment. Not in Amanda failing to give me an expensive gift, but in her failing to see me as someone worthy of the same consideration and respect she now lavished on the Thompsons. Almost mechanically, I picked up the lottery ticket from the coffee table. The drawing would be at 11, about an hour from now. I didn't expect to win anything, of course. The odds were astronomically against it. But at least I could tell Amanda I had checked her gift, had valued it enough to see it through. It was what a good father would do. The television droned on with a rerun of an old cop show as I waited for the lottery drawing. I wasn't really watching my mind, still replaying the events of the day, particularly the stark contrast between the two Father's Day gifts and what they represented. I glanced at the lottery ticket in my hand. Powerball. 6 numbers stood between countless players and a fortune. I'd never been a gambling man. I understood the mathematics too well to throw money away on such terrible odds. At 11, I changed the channel to the local station that broadcast the drawing live. A perky hostess stood next to the lottery machine, explaining the rules and the current jackpot, $150 million. She mentioned it was a rollover from previous weeks, with no winners, hence the large sum. "Ready to make someone very rich tonight?" she asked her co-host with practiced enthusiasm. "Let's find out who the lucky winner will be," he replied with an equally rehearsed smile. I looked down at my ticket, noting the 6 numbers Amanda had selected, or more likely that the computer had randomly generated: 22, 42, 54, and Powerball 13. The machine whirred to life, plastic balls bouncing around inside transparent drums. I watched with mild interest as the first regular ball was drawn. "And our first number tonight is 8. I glanced down at my ticket. Match. Next up we have 17. Another match. Mildly interesting coincidence, but matching 2 numbers was common enough and worth nothing. Our third number for tonight is 22. I sat up straighter. 3 matches. That usually won a small prize, maybe $20. Number 4 is 42. 4 numbers. My heart rate increased slightly. That might be a few $100, enough for a nice dinner out, or maybe a new sport coat. And our 5th number tonight is 54. I stared at my ticket in disbelief. 5 matching numbers. That was significant money, possibly tens of thousands. I'd have to look up the exact amount. And finally, our Powerball for tonight is... The red ball tumbled in its separate chamber, finally settling into the chute. 13. The hosts erupted into excited chatter. "We have a winner for tonight's $150 million jackpot. 1 winning ticket has matched all 6 numbers. If you're holding the lucky ticket, congratulations. You're our newest millionaire." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My eyes darted between the television screen showing the winning numbers and the ticket in my trembling hand. All 6 numbers matched. Every single one. "This can't be real," I whispered to the empty room. "This is impossible." But it was real. The $2 lottery ticket, my Father's Day gift, the afterthought, was worth $150 million. I began to laugh, a strange, choked sound that bordered on hysteria. The sheer absurdity of the situation was overwhelming. Just hours ago, I had sat at a table feeling small and insignificant as Richard Thompson celebrated his $13,000 cruise tickets. Now, in a twist of fate so improbable it seemed fictional, I held a piece of paper worth more than the Thompson family fortune. My first coherent thought was about Amanda. Should I call her immediately? The idea lasted only seconds before I dismissed it. I needed time to process this, to think clearly about what it meant and what I would do next. I spent the night in a state of disbelief, checking and rechecking the numbers until the paper was creased from handling. I researched the protocol for claiming large lottery prizes, learning that winners of this magnitude typically consulted with financial and legal professionals before coming forward. Sleep was impossible. My mind raced with possibilities, with questions, with plans forming and dissolving. By dawn, I had made one decision: I would tell no one. Not even Amanda, until I had claimed the prize and determined exactly how to proceed. The next morning I called in sick to my part-time consulting job for the first time in years. I contacted a respected law firm in the city, vaguely explaining I needed advice regarding a significant financial matter. They connected me with a partner who specialized in sudden wealth management. "Mr. Adams, I understand you've come into some money," the attorney said when we met in his downtown office. "You could say that." I slid the ticket across his desk, protected now in a plastic sleeve. His eyes widened as he verified the numbers against the official drawing. "Well, this changes the trajectory of our conversation considerably. Congratulations." For the next week, I assembled a team. The attorney, a certified financial planner, an accountant, and a philanthropic advisor. I learned about lump sum versus annuity options. I chose lump sum tax implications, substantial and wealth preservation strategies. After federal and state taxes, my net windfall would be approximately $90 million, a staggering amount that could last several lifetimes with proper management. During this week, I continued my normal routine as much as possible. Amanda called twice, once to ask if I'd checked my lottery ticket. I said I hadn't gotten around to it yet, and once to share more details about Richard's upcoming cruise. Richard himself called, surprisingly, to invite me to a golf outing. I politely declined, wondering if the invitation would have been extended before his daughter-in-law gifted him expensive cruise tickets. 10 days after Father's Day, I finally claimed my winnings, opting to remain anonymous as my state lottery allowed. The money was transferred to newly established accounts, and just like that, I was a multi-millionaire. That evening I called Amanda. "I was thinking of hosting a small dinner at my place this weekend. Nothing fancy, just you, James, and your in-laws if they're free." "At your house?" Amanda sounded surprised. Sure. Let me check with everyone. Is there a special occasion?" "Just thought it would be nice to get together," I said casually. "I'll grill some steaks." "I'll let you know," she said, sounding uncertain. "Richard and Elaine might have plans." 2 days later, my dining room table was set for 5. I had purchased steaks from the local butcher. Good quality, but nothing extravagant. The house was clean, but unchanged. I had decided against making any visible purchases or changes until after this dinner. The Thompsons arrived 15 minutes late. Richard and Elaine looked slightly uncomfortable as they entered my modest home. "Charming place," Elaine said, glancing around with poorly concealed judgment. "So, cozy." "Been meaning to ask," Richard added, examining a small water stain on the living room ceiling. "Have you ever thought about upgrading real estate in this area? Has good investment potential. I could help you find something with a bit more presence." "I'm comfortable here," I replied simply. "It's home." Amanda and James arrived shortly after bearing an expensive bottle of wine. "Thought this might go well with dinner," James said. "It's from Richard's favorite vineyard in Napa." Dinner conversation was dominated as usual by Richard. He expounded at length about the upcoming cruise, showing photos of the ship on his phone and listing all the premium amenities they would enjoy. "The owner's suite even comes with a personal butler," he noted with satisfaction. "And priority boarding, of course. No waiting in line with the regular passengers." I nodded politely, serving the grilled steaks and roasted vegetables. The meal was simple but well prepared. "This is actually quite good, Jerry," Elaine said with genuine surprise, as if she had expected me to serve them fast food. "Thank you. I enjoy cooking," I replied. "It's something Sarah taught me. She always said a good meal brings people together." As we finished dessert, homemade apple pie, Richard glanced at his watch. "This has been lovely. But we should probably get going soon. We have preparations to make for the cruise. Less than 3 weeks now. Before you go, I said calmly, there's something I wanted to share with all of you. I went to my office and returned with the lottery ticket and a printout of a news article about the recent Powerball winner. I placed both items on the table. Remember this? I asked, pointing to the ticket. Amanda nodded. Your Father's Day gift. Did you ever check it? I did, actually. The drawing was that night. I pushed the news article toward the center of the table. You might find this interesting. Richard picked it up first, scanning the headline, Single winner claims $150 million Powerball jackpot. Someone got lucky, he remarked. What's this have to do with anything? Compare the winning numbers to the ticket, I suggested quietly. James was the first to make the connection. His eyes darted between the ticket and the article, widening in shock. No way, he whispered. What? Amanda asked, confused. The numbers, James said. They match, all of them. A heavy silence fell over the table as everyone processed what this meant. Richard snatched the ticket, examining it closely, then looked at the article again. This is the winning ticket, he said flatly. $150 million. Amanda's face drained of color. Dad, is this real? Are you serious? I nodded. After taxes, about $90 million. Richard's demeanor transformed instantly. The condescension vanished, replaced by an almost manic friendliness. Jerry. This is incredible. Absolutely incredible. You must be thrilled. He clapped me on the shoulder as if we were old friends. My God, Jerry. Elaine chimed in, her voice warm now. What wonderful news. You deserve this. Amanda sat frozen, her expression unreadable. James looked uncomfortable, glancing between his wife and me. Richard leaned forward eagerly. Have you thought about what you'll do? Investments are crucial with this kind of windfall. I have some excellent connections who could help you manage this. In fact, I'm investing in a development project right now that could double your money in 5 years. I smiled slightly. Thank you, Richard, but I've already assembled a financial team. My plans are quite settled. Plans? Amanda finally spoke, her voice small. What kind of plans? I'm glad you asked. I replied, my voice calm and measured. First, I'm donating $20 million to cancer research in your mother's name. The Sarah Adams Memorial Fund will focus particularly on the type of breast cancer that took her from us. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Additionally, I'm establishing a $10 million scholarship program for engineering students from working-class backgrounds, kids who are bright and driven but might not otherwise afford higher education. Very generous, Richard murmured, clearly calculating how much remained. For myself, I plan to buy a new home. Nothing extravagant, but something with a better kitchen and perhaps a workshop for projects, and a reliable new car to replace my Camry. Just a new house and car? Richard looked genuinely confused. Jerry, you could buy a mansion, a fleet of luxury vehicles. You could live like a king. That's never been my definition of living well, I replied simply. What about family? Richard asked pointedly. Surely you'll be sharing some of this windfall with Amanda and James. The question hung in the air. Amanda looked down at her hands, unable to meet my eyes. I looked directly at my daughter as I answered. I've given Amanda everything I had to give for her entire life. Every extra hour of work, every sacrifice, every decision was made with her well-being in mind. My voice remained gentle, not accusatory. This unexpected windfall doesn't change who I am or what I value. I turned to face Richard. And it doesn't change the lessons I hope my daughter learns about what really matters in life. Amanda finally looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "Dad, I reached across the table and took her hand. Sometimes the smallest gifts teach the biggest lessons, sweetheart." The days following my announcement were chaotic. Word spread quickly, despite my attempts to maintain privacy. Distant relatives and old acquaintances suddenly remembered my existence. Financial advisors and charity organizations flooded my inbox. Local news outlets requested interviews, which I politely declined. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Amanda. The first few were apologetic. "Dad, I'm so sorry about the lottery ticket. I never imagined. Please talk to me. I feel terrible about how thoughtless I was." As days passed without my detailed response, her tone changed. "Dad, when are we going to discuss how this affects the family? James and I could really use help with our mortgage. It would be such a small amount for you now. Richard says lottery winnings are meant to be shared with family. It's the right thing to do." I responded to each message briefly and kindly, but maintained my boundaries. Yes, we would talk soon. No, I wasn't making any financial decisions regarding family yet. I needed time. 2 weeks after my revelation, Amanda appeared at my door unannounced. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her normally perfect appearance disheveled. "Why are you shutting me out?" she demanded as soon as I opened the door. "I've been trying to talk to you for days." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "I'm not shutting you out. I've been busy setting up the Cancer Research Foundation and meeting with the university about the scholarship program." She followed me to the kitchen where I was preparing coffee. "So you're really going through with giving all that money away, without even discussing it with your family?" "Not all the money," I corrected calmly. "About a third. And yes, those decisions are final." "But what about us?" Amanda's voice cracked. "James and I have student loans. We're saving for a house. A real house, not the condo. We want to start a family soon." I poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, motioning for her to join me. "Amanda, you and James have a combined income that puts you in the top 5% of earners in this country. You have a luxury condo with no mortgage thanks to your in-laws. You take multiple vacations every year. You drive new cars. You're not struggling. But we could be doing so much better. Especially now that you have all this money just sitting there. Is that what this is about?" "Doing better. Having more?" I asked quietly, "because from where I sit, you already have more than most people could dream of." "That's not fair," she protested. "Of course I appreciate what I have, but when your own father suddenly has millions, it's natural to expect some of it would help his only child." I studied my daughter's face, trying to reconcile this entitled young woman with the sweet, grateful child I had raised. "Do you remember when you were 16 and wanted to go on that school trip to Washington, D.C.? She frowned at the apparent non sequitur. "What does that have to do with anything? The trip cost $800. We couldn't afford it, but I picked up weekend shifts at a hardware store for 3 months to make it happen." "Do you remember what you said when I gave you the money?" Amanda looked down at her coffee. "I said, thank you. You said, this is the best thing ever, Dad. I'll never forget what you did for me. And you wrote me a card saying you hoped one day you could repay me for all the sacrifices I'd made." "I was a kid," she said defensively. "You were old enough to understand sacrifice and gratitude," I countered. "Somewhere along the way, you seem to have forgotten both." "That's not true. I appreciate everything you've done for me." "Do you?" I asked gently. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you've decided I'm not quite good enough anymore. Not since you married into the Thompson family." "That's ridiculous," she protested, but her eyes slid away from mine. Is it You gave Richard a $13,000 cruise package for Father's Day. You spent time researching what would make him happy, invested significant money, wrapped it beautifully. And for me, a last-minute $2 lottery ticket. The message was pretty clear about who you value more. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't like that. The Thompsons just have higher expectations. They're used to expensive things. You've always been so practical, so against materialism. I thought you'd appreciate something simple. This isn't about the cost of the gift, Amanda. It never was. It's about thought, consideration, respect. You didn't give me a lottery ticket because you thought I'd appreciate its simplicity. You gave it to me because you didn't think I was worth the same effort you gave Richard. The truth of my words hung in the air between us. Amanda's tears spilled over. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't realize. I didn't think." "I know you didn't," I said, my tone softening. "And that's why I'm not rushing to share this windfall. Money has a way of revealing character, not building it. Right now, I'm seeing sides of you, and the Thompsons, that concern me deeply. So you're punishing me, using the money to teach me some kind of lesson." I shook my head. "I'm giving you time to reflect on what's really important, on who you want to be." The Amanda I raised understood the value of things beyond price tags. "People change, Dad," she said, a hint of defiance returning. "Maybe I'm not the same person I was before I met James and his family. Maybe I've grown up, seen more of the world. Growth isn't measured by the price of your clothes or the exclusivity of your vacation destinations," I replied. "It's measured by how you treat people, especially those who've been there for you through everything." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground that was sometimes painful, sometimes healing. By the end, we had reached no concrete resolution regarding the money, but something more valuable had begun. An honest conversation about expectations, values, and the future of our relationship. As Amanda prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry about the lottery ticket. Not because it made you rich, but because of what it represented." "I know, sweetheart," I said, hugging her, "and we'll figure this out together, but not overnight." After she left, I sat alone in my living room, thinking about the strange twist of fate that had brought us to this point. A $2 lottery ticket had made me wealthy beyond imagination, but the real value would come in what it revealed, about my daughter, about the Thompsons, and about myself. In the weeks that followed, Richard made several attempts to contact me, each thinly disguised as friendship, but transparent in their intent to access my newfound wealth. I remained polite but firm, declining his investment opportunities and suggestion that I join him for a guy's trip to Las Vegas. Meanwhile, I proceeded with my plans. The Sarah Adams Cancer Research Fund was established at the University Medical Center, where she had been treated. The scholarship program was launched with the first recipients to be selected for the upcoming academic year. I purchased a comfortable new home in a quiet neighborhood, larger than my old house but far from ostentatious, and donated most of my old furniture to a shelter for families transitioning out of homelessness. I also began to travel, starting with a trip to Italy, the country Sarah and I had always dreamed of visiting together. I walked the streets of Rome, Florence, and Venice, taking pictures to show Amanda when I returned. In each city, I lit a candle in a church for Sarah, imagining her beside me, seeing the art and architecture we had only read about in books. On social media, I occasionally saw posts from the Thompsons' cruise, Richard posing on the ship's deck, Elaine at elegant dinners, excursions to picturesque Mediterranean ports. They looked happy, and I genuinely hoped they were enjoying the experience my daughter had given them. Amanda and I spoke regularly, but with a new carefulness. The easy relationship we once had was damaged, but not beyond repair. She asked thoughtful questions about my travels and the charitable foundations, showing more interest in these aspects of my new life than in the financial details. 3 months after Father's Day, Amanda appeared at my new home unannounced again. This time her expression was different, calmer, more centered. "Can we talk?" she asked simply. I welcomed her in, showing her around the house she hadn't yet visited. It was comfortable and warm, with a large kitchen where I had begun taking cooking classes and a workshop filled with woodworking tools, a hobby I had always wanted to pursue. We settled in the sunroom, overlooking a small garden. "Something's different about you," I observed. "You seem, I don't know, more like your old self." She nodded. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since our last real conversation about who I've become, about what I value." She took a deep breath. "James and I are making some changes." "What kind of changes?" "For starters, we're selling the condo and buying a smaller house, something we can actually afford on our own. We've put a deposit on a place in Oakwood. Not fancy, but it's in a good school district for when we have kids." This surprised me. Oakwood was a solidly middle-class neighborhood, nice but nowhere near the affluent area where the Thompsons lived. "We're also cutting back on a lot of things," she continued. "Realized we were spending money on stuff we don't even care about, just to keep up with Richard and Elaine's lifestyle." "How does James feel about all this?" Amanda smiled. "It was actually his idea. He said he's tired of trying to live up to his father's expectations, wants us to build our own life based on our values, not his parents'." "That's remarkable," I said, genuinely impressed. "How are Richard and Elaine taking it?" Her expression clouded slightly. "Not great, especially since—" She hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Richard lost a lot of money in a bad investment. Some development deal that fell through. They're not broke or anything, but they've had to scale back considerably." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "Despite everything, I wouldn't wish financial hardship on anyone." "The thing is," Amanda continued, "they came to us for help, asked if we could loan them money to tide them over. And we said no." Her eyes met mine, steady and clear. "James said it was time his father learned to live within his means. We offered to help them create a budget instead." I couldn't help but laugh. "I imagine that went over well." "About as well as you'd expect." Amanda smiled ruefully. "But here's the crazy part. I think they're actually going to do it. The whole experience has been humbling for them." "Sometimes we need humbling," I said quietly. "I know I did," Amanda admitted. "Dad, I'm not here to ask for money. I want you to know that. James and I are doing fine on our own, and we're happier focusing on what matters." "And what matters?" I asked, curious to hear her answer. "Family. Real relationships, being proud of the work we do and the people we are." She reached across and took my hand. "I lost sight of that for a while, got caught up in the Thompsons' world of status and appearances. I'm sorry for how I treated you." The sincerity in her eyes brought a lump to my throat. "We all make mistakes, sweetheart. The important thing is recognizing them and growing." We spent the afternoon talking about her plans. The smaller house, the community garden. She had joined her decision to volunteer at the same hospital where her mother had been treated. Not once did she ask about my money or how I planned to spend it. Instead, she asked about my woodworking projects and my next travel destinations. As she was leaving, I handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it when you get home," I suggested. "It's not what you think." The next morning, she called, her voice thick with emotion. "Dad, the photos. How did you find these?" The envelope had contained photographs I had discovered while moving. Pictures of Amanda as a little girl with Sarah and me. Beach trips, birthday parties, ordinary moments made precious by time and loss. "Thought you might want them for your new house," I said. "Your mom would be proud of the woman you're becoming, Amanda." So am I. 1 year after that fateful Father's Day, my life had transformed in ways both expected and surprising. The money had changed my circumstances, certainly. I no longer worried about retirement or healthcare costs. I could travel, pursue hobbies, give generously to causes I believed in. But the most significant changes had nothing to do with dollars and cents. The Sarah Adams Cancer Research Fund had already funded 2 promising studies with preliminary results that offered hope for more effective treatments. I received quarterly updates from the research team, each one a bittersweet reminder of why this work mattered so much. The scholarship program was flourishing as well. 10 students were currently receiving full tuition plus stipends, all from backgrounds similar to mine. Working-class families, where college might otherwise have been an insurmountable financial burden. I had met each recipient, been moved by their stories and ambitions, seen in them the same determination that had carried me through my own education. My personal life had expanded in unexpected ways. I had made new friends through my woodworking classes and travel groups. I had even started dating occasionally. Nothing serious yet, but it felt good to share meals and conversations with interesting women after so many years alone. Most importantly, my relationship with Amanda had healed and deepened. Our weekly dinners had been reinstated, sometimes at my house, sometimes at her new home in Oakwood. The modest 3-bedroom ranch she and James had purchased reminded me of my first house. Comfortable, practical, filled with potential. Amanda had changed profoundly over the past year. Gone were the designer clothes and status-conscious attitudes. She had taken a position with a non-profit organization that provided support to families affected by cancer, finding fulfillment in work that honored her mother's memory. James had made changes too, leaving his father's company to start a small consulting business of his own. As for the Thompsons, they had weathered their financial setback with surprising resilience. Richard's investment loss had forced them to downsize significantly, selling the mansion for a more modest home, trading in luxury vehicles for practical ones. Initially bitter about these changes, they had gradually adjusted to their new circumstances, perhaps even finding some relief in the simpler lifestyle. What amazed me most was how Amanda and James had stepped up to support Richard and Elaine through this transition. Not financially, the younger couple had maintained that boundary firmly, but emotionally and practically. Amanda had helped Elaine learn to cook when they could no longer afford a personal chef. James had guided his father through reorganizing his remaining investments more conservatively. For this year's Father's Day, Amanda suggested something different. "No gifts," she insisted. "Just dinner at our place. You, me, James, and if you're comfortable with it, Richard and Elaine." I agreed, curious to see how the dynamics would play out after all that had transpired. The dinner was remarkably pleasant. Richard had lost much of his bluster, listening more than he spoke. Elaine contributed meaningfully to conversations rather than focusing on appearances. The meal was simple but delicious, prepared by Amanda and James together. After dinner, despite her no gifts rule, Amanda handed me a package. "Just something small I made," she explained. Inside was a handcrafted album. The first pages contained photos I recognized. Childhood memories, Amanda growing up, Sarah's bright smile. But the later pages showed newer moments. Amanda and me at my new house, working in the garden together. A group photo from the Scholarship Fund's inaugural ceremony. Amanda and James volunteering at a cancer fundraiser. The final page held a note in Amanda's handwriting, Dad. A year ago, I gave you what I thought was a worthless gift that turned out to be priceless. But the real gift wasn't the lottery ticket or the money it brought. It was the wake-up call that helped me rediscover what you tried to teach me all along. The true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in love, integrity, and purpose. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I lost my way. Love, always, Amanda. I looked up to find my daughter watching me, her eyes soft with emotion. This is the best Father's Day gift I've ever received, I told her honestly. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave, Richard approached me privately. Jerry, I owe you an apology, he said, his voice lacking its former pomposity. For years I judged your worth by your bank account and possessions. I was wrong, dead wrong. He extended his hand. You're a better man than I am. A better father, too, as it turns out. I'm learning from your example, trying to focus on what really matters. It's not easy changing at my age, but I'm trying. I shook his hand, feeling the last vestiges of resentment dissolve. It's never too late to change, Richard. Trust me on that. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the strange journey of the past year. A $2 lottery ticket had made me a multi-millionaire overnight, but the true value had come in what it revealed, about character priorities and the things that money could never buy. The greatest wealth in my life had always been the love I shared with Sarah and Amanda, the values we believed in, the difference we tried to make. The millions in my bank account paled in comparison to seeing my daughter reclaim the compassionate, grounded person she was meant to be. Sometimes the smallest gifts deliver the biggest lessons indeed. What unexpected life lessons have you received that changed your perspective? Have you ever experienced a moment when you realized what truly matters to you? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder today. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, true wealth can never be measured by a bank account.